On January 18th, 2013, I was arrested and charged with obstruction of an officer due to the fact that a child welfare worker, one Mitchell Anhar, and a police officer who, in my court documents, is only mentioned as being Officer Smith. Therefore, I have no way to file a complaint against him because his badge number and his full name aren't even mentioned. Due to the fact that I refused to hand over my then 15-month-old daughter to a Child Protective Services. I suppose, according to the officer, calls were made to the extent that my husband and myself were arguing and that the baby was in some type of jeopardy. When the officer arrived, our argument had calmed down, but based on the condition of the home, when they came out, though, I tried to explain to the officer that I was sick and that I had not really had the opportunity to clean due to the fact that I was not feeling well. My daughter was taken from me based on the fact that I had a prior child removal 2 years ago. My son Nicholas Andrew Casey was taken from me at the age of 9 months due mostly to a messy house and concerns, quote unquote, that I was unmedicated. The truth of the matter remains that the concerns were my mental illness alone, not that I was unmedicated. I had foolishly been honest with the officer and admitted to missing my medication only that day, but my medication had been in my system for 6 months. The medication had not left my system yet. I was still medicated. When the officer came out to check on me and my daughter and my husband, it was true that I did tell them that I was unmedicated. I also informed them that I was pregnant and therefore was advised by my doctor not to take medication. In what is supposed to be the so-called information age, it never ceases to amaze me how little information child welfare workers and public officials have regarding the nature of psychiatric disorders, regarding the fact that psychiatric medication can be detrimental to a fetus, or the fact that persons who are seeking mental health services are supposed to be afforded the right to refuse medication if deemed so. I am not in a state facility or hospital. I do not require a conservator or a public guardian or anything of that sort, yet I am being treated as though I were a criminal based solely on the fact that I am not taking medication because of my doctor's recommendation. I do not think that it is fair or just that I went to jail for 8 days without being charged with any crime, nor do I think that it is fair or just that my daughter is being held somewhere with a complete stranger whom I do not know and is being denied placement with her older brother, even though the courts have said that that was the recommendation, based solely on the fact that the supervisors are now saying that in my father's foster home, yes, my father is a licensed foster parent, there are, quote-unquote, too many babies, and that my daughter may not receive the individualized attention she is now receiving. I have a great deal of concerns about the fact that I am well aware that state and federal laws require child welfare workers to first look into relatives as placement before placing a child in foster care, or else those states are not eligible for the federal foster care funding. Yet somehow every state tries to find a loophole around this law. The state of California itself is also required to give preferential consideration to non-related caregivers, especially grandparents, especially a grandparent who has already adopted an older sibling. And yet my daughter is in foster care, away from her sibling, away from her grandparents, away from her biological family. to the foster parent, it's been almost 4 months, and I know the laws and how they go, how if you were to petition the court that you would be given preferential consideration because of the amount of time that you have had my daughter. I do not think this is fair when I had my daughter since birth. She was with me for 15 months, and the courts did not even look at me as if I have any right to her when I am her biological mother, and I have been praying every day for her return. And if you have been praying for her to stay there, I just find it subtle and ironic that in order for God to hear your prayers, he would have to ignore mine. You don't know me, and therefore have no right to judge me. And I don't know you and don't seek to judge you, but I can't help but feel that my daughter deserves a caregiver who would place her needs before her own. And one of a child's most fundamental needs is the need for social interaction with their siblings. It is from our siblings that we learn. It is from our siblings that our psychological and even emotional development. I grew up without either of my parents, but I had both of my brothers with me, and this is something that I am grateful for. But I cannot take comfort in the fact that my daughter has neither her parents nor her sibling with her.